Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Workforce Wednesday. We are going to get started. My name is Olga Scamilla and I'm your host. So you're here for Capturing Career Services, the who, what, when, how, and why, part 1. So I would like to welcome our presenter, Kara McVeigh. Kara has an Associate of Applied Science in Business Management and a Bachelor in Business Administration. She worked as an administrative assistant at a community college. She also worked for Workforce Solutions in Central Texas for several years, and she's worked the past 6 years with the TWC AL department as our grant specialist. Some of Kara's hobbies are playing video games on Xbox and mobile games, reading a good book, watching TV and documentaries on crime and other taboo topics, and then reading news articles. So welcome, Kara. Thank you for joining us today and sharing on this wonderful topic, capturing career services. So, Kara, take it away.
Thank you so much, Olga. I want to just extend a nice thank you for the wonderful introduction. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So we're going to be talking about Capturing Career Services, Part 1. The who, what, when, how, and why. So we're going to be talking about career services. And by the end of today's session, you should be able to recall AEL letter 0223 and reference AEL letter 0123, as well as the OCTAE program memo, 17-2, regarding the Department of Labor Performance Accountability Guidance regarding career services and training services. Classify career services and their costs, determine what should be in the career services budget, and identify allowable and unallowable career service costs. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about entering a career services budget in CEDAR. So career services, budgets, costs, and CEDAR reporting. So we're going to follow the flow of the AEL letter a little bit. And this is AEL letter 0223. Practically everything within this presentation comes from 3 sources. And those sources are AEL letter 0223, the OCTAE memo 17-2, as well as AEL letter 0123. And there will be a slide at the very end that has links to all those reference materials. So when it comes down to identifying career services and training service costs, this is what's written within the AEL letter. WIOA requires that the costs for career and training services be determined separately. Given that the WIOA defines administrative costs separately from the definitions of career services and training services, the Department of Education and the Department of Labor made clear in their WIOA Performance Information Collection Requests, or ICRs, that states must not include administrative costs when reporting costs for career services and the costs for training services. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about administrative costs really quick. Administrative costs are defined by us at TWC as direct and indirect costs that are subject to the administrative cost limit of a particular grant award or fund source as defined by the applicable federal law, regulation, or grant award. Examples of what are administrative costs are things like accounting, budgeting, financial, and cash management functions. These are also your procurement and purchasing functions, property management functions, personnel management functions, all done through your HR department. And this is just to name some. And there are many other examples that are listed within AEL Letter 0123 when it comes to defining administrative costs. So please feel free, if you need further explanation, to reference AEL Letter 0123. Also listed within AEL Letter 0223, AEL grant recipients have no local flexibility, wherein they must be aware that not all career services costs are attributed to interactions with individual students. Costs may be incurred when providing career services to support the overall program, such as outsourced printing costs for orientation brochures or production costs for outreach videos. So these are just a couple examples of what could be considered career services costs. CEDAR system reporting. So there is no local flexibility when reporting costs in the CEDAR system. AEL grant recipients must follow the guidance in AEL Letter 0123 that was issued February 14th of 2023 and titled Cash Draw and Expenditure Reporting System Instructions for Adult Education and Literacy Grants and any subsequent issuances. Also, it says AEL grant recipients must update local policies to comply with proper reporting of career services and training services. So this slide just covers what is already listed in AEL Letter 0223. Well, now we're going to get down into the nitty-gritty, which is the part that I like to get into. So how do I figure out my career services budget? Well, that's a very good question, and it comes with many different answers. So as with all aspects of accounting, it may seem easy at first, but once you look more closely, it gets a bit more complicated. Figuring out the budgets in general is complicated because there's so much that falls under each activity within CEDAR. And that's regarding training services and career services. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so what are some things you need to account for in your CEDAR budget for career services? Well, based off of what's listed in AEL Letter 0223, this could be one of several things. Either full salary and fringe benefits or a portion of salary, wages, and fringe benefits. It could be outsourced printing costs. It could be for outreach activities like community resource fairs, job fairs, things of that nature where you're actually at a physical event and you're interacting with folks. These could be assessment tests costs. I know that is a big purchase, especially for programs and providers all across the state. There are also booth fees, banners for program identification, local travel costs for staff to job fairs or other community resource events. These could be costs associated with billboards, newspaper, television, radio announcements, etc. for program outreach. Production costs to develop online videos or webinars for program outreach and orientation. And finally, since we've already stated this once before, just to reiterate again, costs that are necessary for career services are not considered administrative. So, since payroll is the largest amount of funds in your career services budget, we're going to take a closer look at how you can determine the amount of payroll needed. Something that has occurred to me in all the time that we have been here, that we've never really showed what a budget could look like in regards to what career services could be construed as. So on the right-hand side of the slide is a screen capture of an example of a career services budget. So the budget on this slide, as I said, is an example. This is what it would look like possibly within your institution's general ledger. If services or goods are to be purchased from outside your institution, you do need to follow your local procurement guidance. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about the production costs for online videos and webinars. If you are an education service center and you have a very big area to serve, you may not have the production team on your staff within the ESC to put together a really good online video or webinar or commercial for advertising for the product or putting together your webinar. you may have to outsource those costs. And there are certain laws that we have to follow, such as procurement guidance. And that's why we advise looking at your local procurement guidance. If there is no guidance, please feel free to reach out to AEL Contracts. We are more than happy to take a closer look and figure out how we can best advise you. One of the things when it comes down to figuring out your payroll for staff, there's two ways that we can do this. We can do it through delegated staff. So these are staff that are full-time that you can just pay. All they do is orientation, intake, and outreach. That's all they do. So they could have their entire payroll put into the career services budget. Then you have the more realistic picture where you don't have dedicated staff. And so you have various staff that they take a portion out of their day to assist a student in getting them involved. So that's where you need to figure out a percentage portion of time and effort. Time and effort is the biggest part of trying to figure this out. So after much talk and thinking through of a process, we've come up with an idea. And this suggestion is the best we have come up with. There are two ways we can do this. The two ways to do this are figuring out the percentage of time that a staff member is dedicating to career services for 1 week and doing this twice. So the 1 week period you ought to do first during a busy period, so during a busy enrollment period, and then the second period you ought to be assessing a less busy time. So following the steps on this slide, to determine the percentage of time and effort for staff, step 1, staff that are providing career services should track their time during an enrollment period for 1 week. And I'm going to explain this in more detail in the next few slides. Once the percentage of time for a week is determined, it can be applied to the staff's salary or wage and fringe benefits. So that's really what we're trying to do, is establish what the percentage of time is for a person during this period of time. So step 3, the percentage of time can be applied to the pay for the rest of the semester or program year at various intervals. So let's say you have 2 weeks in a month that are super busy, and then you have 2 weeks in a month that are not so busy. Well, okay, so we would take the busy time percentage and apply that to those 2 weeks that it was busy. And then we have another percentage that we apply to the less busy time. The last thing is this should give a accurate estimate of how much money should be budgeted into career services regarding the salary and wages budget. One thing I did want to include is at the local level, you all have a different process and a different method for tracking time and effort. Please let us know. We would love to hear about it. Send an email to AEL Contracts and we will be happy to review. Okay, so the previous slide was kind of wordy, so now we're going to try applying it to this word problem. Terry is a full-time career navigator. Oscar is interested in becoming a welder. Well, Terry met with Oscar for 30 minutes and provided him with the information on what he could expect to make in his area as a welder regarding his rate of pay, as well as his educational options with the program and outside the program. That same week, during a busy enrollment time, Terry also met with 19 other participants for 30-minute appointments each. So there's the word problem. Now we're going to show into how we calculate this out. What I like to do is put things that are in words into numbers because it helps me compute better. So Terry met with 20 students total that week at 30 minutes each. So 20 students times half an hour gives you 10 hours for the week. So she spent 25% of her time with students. Now, you may need to figure this up at an amount per week basis. It may just be that you need to figure out just the percentage of time and have that applied on a per monthly basis. It really depends on your local HR rules. I know at the state we get paid once a month, so figuring it up or on a per month basis is easier for us. When we're trying to figure out the rate of pay, you can do it on a per year basis, you can do it on a per month basis, you can do it on a weekly basis. For the purpose of this problem, we went on a weekly basis. So the calculation for how I got the $862 per week is at the bottom of this slide. So Terry's salary or wages are $45,000 a year. So divide that out by 12 months a year, we get their monthly balance. Then I divided another 4.35 weeks in a month to figure out approximately how much she makes per week. So back to the math problem. Now that you know how we got the $862 a week, multiplied by 25%, it comes down to $215.52 in career services expenditures. This could be, well, it's supposed to be for the budget, but expenditures works because you're going to be taking money out of that budget. Okay, then at the $215.52 per week, and this is just a way to check yourself, that times 4.35 weeks in a month, you get the $937.51, and that's just for a month in the time and effort for career services. As I said, this seems complicated at first, and it is time intensive initially, but really what we're wanting to do as well is make sure that we're following the Octave guidance as much as possible. And whenever it comes down to putting together dollars and cents, well, honestly, the budget, the calculation in the Octave memo 17-2 of total expenditures divided by total participants is how Octave says that we ought to figure out how much we're spending on career services, but there's more to it than just that simple calculation, because you got to figure out how much your money is going to be. And I have yet to figure out how to make that work when it comes down to money. All right, so tips on the time and effort of staff percentage. So if a program chooses to have dedicated staff for the intake process of students, it is an allowable cost. There's nothing that says that you can't do this. If tracking the amount of time for a month is more reasonable, then do it that way. If whatever makes the most sense for your local program, we encourage. The methodology, and this is the most important, should be recorded regarding how to calculate the time and effort for staff for career services, and it needs to be kept with your fiscal documentation. Some of the things that we have come across whenever we're doing monitoring visits or monitoring a program related is, and within our recent financial conferences that TWC has hosted, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of interaction about fiscal documentation. So I am a big supporter and proponent of anything that you need to try to figure out something. You need to keep it with your business office, wherever your cost allocation plan is, anywhere. Keep that information together so that if you get monitored, it's all in one place. Don't have to go finding it, and it's all there. So I did want to list this. If we're adding or taking away funds from a career services budget, in new program years, this can be requested as early as August. And after August, any other time in the year, we can make changes to the budgets. Cedar does have a moment when we're changing program years. Well, there is nothing regarding budget adjustments for the newest allocations that have been published. We can't make any changes in Cedar on our side as grant specialists because the reporting for the month of July has not generated yet. So that's why we have to wait until August. I just wanted to put that little rule out there. So now we've talked about how to figure out time and effort. I wanted to do a quick review of this slide before moving on. So in your Cedar budget, we've already covered the items listed on this slide, such as either a fuller portion of salary, wages, and fringe benefits, outsourced printing costs, assessment test costs, fees associated with participating in either a job fair or a community resource fair, media announcements for program outreach, and costs to develop online videos. So we're going to cover, dun, 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 the things that are not allowed for you to pay for using career services funds. This is also outlined in AEL Letter 0123. The AEL grant recipients must exclude certain costs from career services expenditures, including the following: We have workforce prep activities and English language acquisition programs. These are not considered career services. These are considered, I believe, training services. Next, we have identifying supportive service providers with which the AFLA program does not have an existing or established relationship. So there is a new entity in town and you all have never worked with them before, but they say that they can provide supportive services like childcare, rent assistance, food pantries, other things that are associated with how we term supportive services. If you don't have an existing established relationship with them, then that is not something that you could apply towards career services. The AFLA program's allocable share of any portion of shared infrastructure costs. So if you're sharing space with one of the workforce solutions offices because you have an agreement where you all can come in and teach classes, well, those infrastructure costs are not considered an allowable cost under career services. Those are specifically under administrative costs. And we do split those out within CEDAR. Lastly, portions of the provider's own space, equipment, supplies, and software costs used in the delivery of career services, not necessarily the American Job Center or Workforce Solutions costs. So if your in college is charging rent for use of classrooms, well, then that would not be considered a career services cost that you could put under the career services budget. Now we're going to do our activity in the chat. So please put whether each point is allowed or not allowed. So is an initial assessment test allowed? Yes or no? Yes, it is allowed. Okay, new question. Are shared infrastructure costs allowed or not allowed? The answer is no. We're doing a reset. The answer is yes. All right, new reset. We're doing workforce prep activities. Are these allowed? Yes or no? Okay, so workforce prep activities were no. You can already see outsourced printing costs were yes. So yes, you can send out your outsourced printing costs and applies those to your career services budget. And now the last one, entering into an agreement with a new supportive service entity. Yes or no? All right, the last one was no. If you have questions about the answers on this activity, please feel free to email us at AEL Contracts, and we'll be happy to go over things with you if we need to go further in depth.
Okay, we got a question. The door wants to know if these are the most common mistakes.
These are not necessarily mistakes that we have seen. This is to explain how career services should be budgeted for in my portion. In year 5 of funding, we had put in CEDAR a supplemental line that showed career service costs. Well, based off the Octane memo, there wasn't a whole lot other than these activities are what are considered career services under Octane's guidance. Well, how do you put a dollar number on that? Because it only talked about activities. It didn't talk about how to put a dollar number on it aside from, oh, it's just total expenditures divided by total participants. No, that's not how that works because programs have much bigger budgets than just that. And if we're trying to figure out career services and split them out from the rest of the budget for specific reporting for federal purposes, then we need to see what all goes into making those budgets up, what all is considered allowable. So let's go ahead and keep going. All right, so when we're talking about creating budgets in CEDAR, did want to mention how a budget adjustment is to be requested. So it's very simple. We request that an email be sent to AEL Contracts. And in the request, in the body of the email, we need just 4 bits of information. The year of funding being adjusted. So if you have more than one program year of funding, it's very important that we know which year of funding that we're working with. I can't tell you how many times we get emails and they don't tell us what year of funding we're working with. And then we have to go back and figure out if we've made mistakes or whatever because we made corrections to the wrong year. How much money is being moved? Hey, it's always easier for us to know, hey, I need to move $10,000 into training costs from program costs. Okay, we can do that. And finally, where is the money going to be applied to? So we just, and if there's anything missing within that email, we have no problem sending an email out saying, hey, can you please clarify something? And we will specify what it is we need clarification on. We do ask that you please be patient with us. It can take up to 2 business days to process a budget adjustment request. This really depends on our workload at the time. Under normal conditions, we can usually have the budget adjustments done same day. This is just to see if you know. Please answer the following. Number 1, can money be moved to IELCE from AEL combined? Or can it be AEL combined to IELCE? Can you move between the two categories? Yes or no? The answer is no. We cannot take money from IELCE and put it to AEL combined. Just like we can't take AEL combined and put it to IELCE. Here's why. AEL combined is mostly your AFLA 231 funding stream. That's your AFLA federal money. IELCE is your AFLA 243 funding. I want to see if you know this. Can the money be moved from program year to program year in CEDAR? Yes or no? We cannot combine funding years of money in CEDAR. So if you have year 4 money and year 5 money and you want to combine them, we can't do that. If you have carry forward from year 4 into program year 5, we cannot add that carry forward to the new allocation of funds. It's just not something we're able to do. With it being said that there are some newer providers on the call, this is a screenshot of what is listed in CEDAR. I just wanted to put a visual aid or a screen capture of what it is that you see or what it is that the grant specialists see. This is just half of what it is that we look at. So on the far left-hand column, we've got the description, and it tells you what funding each row is. And then there's cost categories. That's necessary for finance, not necessarily something that grant specialists need to know. Your line budget amounts. We got to know what your budget is. If you get your budget and you're not real sure what it's supposed to be, please let us know, and we will help you with that. Fourth column is cumulative expenditures. This is updated throughout the year. So as time goes on and expenditures are entered, that number in those rows grows. So we get to see how much money you've spent. Then the fifth column is expended. It just shows the percentage of the money spent within this time period. And then there's a few other columns that are listed within CEDAR itself.
Who do we contact for help with the line item budget?
AEL Contracts is who you would contact, and those of us on that distribution list will be happy to jump in and see what we can do to help. And if there's anything that we don't know, there are definitely people in other departments that can help further. So how are expenditures entered into CEDAR? This is much more geared towards the fiscal folks that I hope are on this call. Anytime you get into CEDAR, which is cash draw and monthly expenditure reporting system, when they have to enter expenditures for the month, there is a specific area. Unfortunately, I do not have access to get into those areas, and that's more for a safeguard of accuracy and information. Because if I can change your expenditures, I don't think that's a good idea, because that could lead to all kinds of weirdness and legal issues. We're not playing that game. So if there's anything that if you get into CEDAR that you're not sure how to do, there are pre-recorded trainings that are listed on the left-hand side in the quick nav box, which is listed here at the bottom. And they have, I think, 8 training modules. You can take them as you need. I've had to go in and refresh myself on, and even learn how to do certain functions within CEDAR because I just don't have that capability. I don't have the ability to go in and make those changes or to use that particular part of the program. So learning how to better serve you all, yes, I go through training too. Anyway, so when it's time to enter monthly expenditures, this is the screen where the information is to be entered. This is just a screenshot or screen capture that I took from the pre-recorded TWC training on how to enter expenditures and reports in CEDAR. And if there's other questions about that, please feel free to send an email to AEL Contracts. And that concludes. If you all have any further questions or you come across something Please feel free to email us at aelcontracts@twc.texas.gov. Always willing to answer any questions that you may have. If you come across something you're not sure how to continue, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer. So with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.